Good morning. Yehuda Hanassi.
1 second, you're muted.
I'm muted? Okay. Why am I muted?
Larry, why is Mindel muted? Unmute.
All right.
Okay.
I'll try again.
Yep.
Good morning. Yehuda Hanassi. We'll try again.
Sit down.
Yehuda Hanassi. No, it's not working. All right. Something's going on. Are we too close together?
Because we're working with two computers.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Try now.
Okay. Yehuda Hanassi. It's not working right. Yehuda Hanassi, the star of Pirkei, was the son of Shimon ben Gamliel II. Now, of course, they didn't use names like the first, the second, but I'm going to refer to them to distinguish, and you'll see why. So I'll try again. Yehuda Hanassi, the star of Pirkei, was the son of Shimon ben Gamliel II. There's an interesting timeline concerning the names Shimon and Gamliel, all of whom descended from Hillel the elder. Of course, we all recognize the name Hillel, who was born in Bavel in about 110 BCE and died in Eretz Yisrael in about 10 CE. Hillel had a son named Shimon, who lived in the early part of the 1st century CE. Shimon's son was Rabban Gamliel the elder, aka Gamliel the First. Gamliel the First had a son called Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who was the second Shimon. Shimon the second had a son whom he named Yehuda. Yehuda became so well known and loved that he was referred to as Yehuda Hanassi, the prince, our holy teacher and master, or simply as Rebbe. Rebbe's son was the third Gamliel, known as Rabban Gamliel. We meet the third Gamliel today. Gamliel, like his father Rebbe, was very involved with the Roman authorities and apparently had some unpleasant experiences with them. So his feelings are reflected in his words of advice. Now, Yehuda Hanassi, or Rebbe, was said to have been born on the day Rebbe Akiva died at the hands of the Romans. Rebbe grew up in the Galil, in Judea. He lived from about 135 CE to 200 CE and became the Nasi after his father, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel II, died. Rebbe was very learned and he was a very wealthy man. He was a generous person who, according to legend, opened his orchards and stores of food to feed the hungry during times of famine. Rebbe became a friend and advisor to the Roman Emperor Antoninus. Perhaps Rebbe's greatest achievement was to implement his decision to codify what we call the Mishnah. The great diaspora grew broader and broader as Roman oppression drove Jews farther and farther apart. Jewish communities began to form all across the world, and Jews began to lose contact with one another. Rebbe saw that Torah scholarship would decline and that Torah practice would begin to evolve differently in different communities. Eventually, Jewish practice around the world would become so varied that the cultural cohesion of the Jewish nation would disintegrate. So to ensure the survival of the Jewish nation, Rebbe came up with a plan for preserving the oral law, the Torah Shabbal Peh. He began working to provide Jews everywhere with a common reference point for the oral law that could be spread throughout the Jewish world. The Anshe Knesset Haggadolah had started this task about 5 centuries earlier by dividing the oral law into Mishnayos. Hillel and Shammai had arranged the Mishnayos into 6 sections or Sidorim. Rebbe Akiva and Rebbe Meir further refined the structure and shaped the form into the final compilation of the Mishnah. Remember that the information was transmitted orally. And also note that the sages began to keep private notes. Okay, private notes, that's what they called it during this time when it was transmitted orally only. Rebbe reviewed centuries of these Talmudic records, and he selected the most authoritative Mishnayos and included important minority opinions to preserve the tradition of the debate. Our continuity as a people has been guaranteed by Israel's continual understanding of and building upon the oral law. The oral law was meant to be transmitted orally, generation to generation, teacher to student, and parent to child. It was not meant to be written down. So Rebbe appears to have violated Torah law in order to preserve Torah tradition. The Torah itself prohibits the dissemination of the oral law in fixed or written form. The sages of Rebbe's generation endorsed the codification of the oral law. From that generation on, no sage was permitted to argue any decision rendered in the Mishnah.
Morning, everybody. So you see that we're getting shaggier and shaggier as the weeks go on. Hopefully we end this isolation pretty soon. So we're continuing the second chapter, the second parak of Pirkei Avot. So if you're following in the Art Scroll Siddur, it happens to be on page 550 in the Art Scroll Siddur. And we're going to be a little bit shorter today because there is a program at 11 o'clock that the shul is zooming from Eretz Yisrael, and they need to get things set up around 10:30. So we're going to only be broadcasting until about 10:30. Hopefully we can pack some information in there that's going to be worthwhile. Pirkei Avot is a favorite of Jews all over the world because for various different reasons. I guess it's advice for life. We can understand it. It's the only book, or the only book in the Mishnah that has no halachas in it. It's not like, so if you're learning Daf Yomi as we are, so Daf Yomi right now is the Masechta Shabbos. So every day there are new halachas in Masechta Shabbos, whether right now it's dealing with what types of materials can you use to insulate a pot. So if you have something that's hot on Friday afternoon, you want to keep it hot, what can you wrap it in, and so on. So they're very strict and very complicated halachos. Pirkei Avot is not like that at all. Pirkei Avot, there are no halachos in there. It's all basically advice and commentary from the rabbis. And for me, sort of the fun of it is that you can assign your own meaning to it because you are a person like anyone else, and you can understand it in your own way and get the most out of it in that sense. So the beginning of the second parak, first Mishnah, Rebbe Omer, Ezohi derech yeshara sheyavor lo adam. What is the correct path that a person should choose? So right away, Rebbe is being active. He's saying, don't let events take over your life. You have the right, you have the option, you have the obligation to choose what direction you want to go in your life. So he says, Kol shehi teferes lo-osa v'teferes lo min adam. It should be something that will glorify you, and also other people will appreciate the way that you act. And so there's a famous story that was recounted by Rabbi Avigdor Miller, where a truck driver he gets into his truck and he drives from New York to California. And when he arrives, the owner of the trucking company asked him, so how did your trip go? He said, very well. I didn't get any tickets and I had an excellent trip. So then the owner said, okay, well, how about the load? What do you have in the truck? He said, oh, I was supposed to bring a load. I thought I was just supposed to go. So your life is, you're not just supposed to sort of escape through life. You have obligations to do, and it's up to you to choose what load you're going to put into your truck. So he says, and then furthermore he says, V'hevi zohir b'mitzvah kala kibachamura. So you have to be careful with what we call simple, easy mitzvos, just like the ones that are difficult. And she'ein ato yodea matan schara shemitzvos, because you don't know. We don't know what is the reward for a particular mitzvah. And so one of the mitzvahs that the Gemara talks about as an easy mitzvah is called shiluach hakan, or shiluach hakain. And what that is that if you come across a bird's nest and you want to take the chicks or the eggs or even the mother bird, whatever you want to do, you're obligated to send away the mother bird, and then you can take the eggs from the nest. So, of course, we had such an experience this week, right in front of our apartment here, on the base of one of the trees. A mother duck had laid 5 eggs, and she had a nest there. And every day we were coming over to take a look and see what's going on. And then, of course, the landscapers came, pull out of the flowers. But there's opportunities for mitzvahs all the time. And the interesting thing is, how difficult is that mitzvah anyway? You just send the mother away and take the eggs. And the Torah says the reward for fulfilling that mitzvah is a long life. So imagine something so simple, and yet you're rewarded with long life. So you don't know what is the reward for one mitzvah, and you have to keep them all with the same sort of scrupulousness. And you should think about the loss of a mitzvah relative to its benefit. Hi, Becky, and my daughter just checked in. So you have to evaluate the work that it might take to do a mitzvah, but what are you going to gain from it? Uschar aveda keneged hefseda. And when you do an avera, it might seem simple to you, but what are you giving up? What are you losing by doing that avera? V'staka b'shlosh dvarim. And you should examine 3 items, 3 matters. What are they? V'yata b'alei de avera. And you will not come to sin. The 3 are dama lemala mimach. Think about what's above you. What is above you, right? So obviously we think that we're being observed from above. Ayin roeh v'ozen shameas. There is an eye which is seeing, which is observing. V'ozen shamas. And there is an ear which is listening. V'kol ma'aseh b'sefer nichtavim. And all of your deeds are being written in a book. Now don't forget, this Pirkei Avos was compiled 2 millennia ago, right? 2,000 years ago. And when this was first said, it occasioned a lot of derision, because people thought, how is that possible? How could it be that here we are in our little hut in Babylonia or whatever, and somebody can see us, and somebody can hear us, and somebody's actually writing down what it is that we're doing? Well, guess what? Here we are in 2020 in the United States, wherever we are, and there are very few places you can go today where someone does not see you or hear you or record what you are up to. So here they were, very prescient, 2,000 years ago, and one of the things I learned from my Rebbeim is that year by year, more and more inventions get invented, and people begin to see that the truth of the Mishnah has always been there. Next Mishnah, Rabban Gamliel ben Osher Rabbi Yehuda Anasi Omer. So Mindel talked about Rabban Gamliel. So he was Rabbi Yehuda Anasi's son, and he said, Yava Talmud Torah im derech eretz. Okay, here's a great one for our family, right? It's good to learn Torah, but you got to work too, right? Working, earning a living goes along with learning Torah. Shiagia shnehem mishkachas avon. Because if you do both, you'll forget about it. You won't sin, because you'll be too busy, right? If you're working and you're studying, but v'kol Torah, so any learning of Torah, any mamalacha, so somebody who basically sits and learns and depends upon the charity of others, what's going to happen to that person? So he says, Sofa batela garez avon. So in the end, his Torah won't work out too well, and it'll cause him to sin. And so that's something to think about, right? Some people who think that it's their job just to sit and learn and not be out there working. So 2,000 years ago, the Mishnah is telling us that's not the best way to live. And then this is for those of us who are involved with communal work. Anyone that works for the congregation, what you do should be with a heavenly purpose. Because in that case, you'll have the help, basically, or the memories of your ancestors, those that went before you who did the same thing. So that will help you. It'll be like advice for you. And their righteousness will stand in good stead for you. And you, and if you continue the tradition of your ancestors and you work for the good of the community with the right motives, then you're going to get the benefit not only of what you've done, but also from what they've done before you. Next one, and this is an interesting one, and you know, Mindel every time tries to give us some historical background, and this particular one, written by Rabban Gamliel, and he had some trouble with the political authorities, and as a result, he's writing here advice for all of us. He says, here in Barushus, he's to be careful of leaders, be suspicious, be a little bit circumspect. Because they do not get close to you except for the benefit of themselves. In other words, when a politician calls you, he's not calling you to find out how you're feeling or whatever. He's calling you for his own purpose. Maybe he needs fundraising or whatever it is. So in those cases, nirin ka'ohavin b'shas hanasan, when it benefits them, so they try to act like they're somebody that really cares about you. V'ein om de lo la'adam b'shas dachako. But when things go wrong, they'll be the first ones to abandon you. So he says, be careful. Basically, you should avoid people like that because their good feelings toward you are basically something that just fits for the situation for them at the time. Further, he said, the Mishnah Dalet says, Hu Yomer, he used to say, Aseh ritzono k'ritzonach. You should make the will of God like your will. So that's like during the Civil War, they asked Abraham Lincoln, we pray before every battle, right? The northern side prays, the southern side prays. We're all praying to the same God. Whose side is God really on? So Lincoln's answer was, we hope that we're on God's side. So and that's kind of what the Mishnah is saying, that your will should be like the will of God. So that your will should be like His, and so then His will should be like yours. And and you should your own will should be subservient to the will of God. So that God will help you, and people who have bad intentions toward you will not succeed. Hillel Omer. So Hillel says, Al tifrosh min hatzibur. And here we are. All of us, we've separated from the community, and yet we're finding a way. We're finding ways to get back together, to join together with the community. So do not separate yourself. And don't be so confident in yourself up until the day of your death. And they give an example of a certain individual who was the Kohen Gadol actually for many, many years, and towards the end of his life something happened. He went off the way. So the idea is to always be careful, always realize that the Yetzer Hara is trying to get in. No matter how old we are, or no matter how successful we've been, there's always a risk. And then he says, Al todin es chavercha ad shetagiya lemukomo. This is a great one, right? Do not judge. First of all, we shouldn't be judging other people. That's not our job. But certainly, do not judge the actions of another person until you've been in his place, right? So when you've experienced the same things that he has, let's see how you would react, right? And don't say something which cannot be heard. So this particular statement can be understood in various different ways. So one of it is that if it's your job to communicate to your group certain information, make sure you get it out there clearly. You know, that don't try to be deceptive. Make sure that what you say is clearly understood, because like they say, it's not what I say, it's what you hear, right? And we've all experienced this. We told someone, we told our kids, whatever, and somehow or other they didn't get the point that we were trying to get across. So he said, when something is being said, make sure that it's said clearly, and then you'll have the benefit that people will recognize. And then also, you should realize, he says, because in the end, lihishameh, it's going to be heard. So if you put something out there and it's either inaccurate or it's difficult to understand, somehow or other the facts are going to come out eventually. So in the end, it's going to be heard. And this is a great one, and for us who are living here in Century Village in Florida, where there is such a thirst for learning, so many people participate in so many different ways. So people say, when we're young or working hard, when I have time, then I'm going to learn. He says, don't say that, because Shema lo tifna, because it could be that you won't reach the point, that you'll never have that opportunity. So whatever opportunities you have in your life, all through life, you should be using them for proper study. And along with study, Hu Yomer, he used to say, Ein bor yirei chet. An ignorant person cannot be God-fearing. And when you examine the complexity of Jewish law, there's so much to every single thing that we do. So if you're not well versed, it's impossible really to fulfill the mitzvahs correctly. V'lo amar etz chassid, and someone who is ignorant cannot be a religious person. V'lo abai shalomed, and this is a great one. If you're not sure of what the teacher has been saying, and you're afraid to ask, well, what's going to happen? You're bashful. You're somebody who's embarrassed to ask. You'll never learn, right? Because you're going to be stuck with the same knowledge that you came in with, because you're not asking a question. V'lo hakaptem melamed, and the other side, from the side of the teacher himself, a teacher should not be a kaptan, which is somebody who has a short temper. Because sometimes a person will ask a question, he'll ask it again and again, and somehow he's not getting it, and you can see how the leader or the teacher just gets frustrated. So the Mishnah says such a person is not going to be able to teach, because he's not going to be acceptable to his students. And if all you're doing in life is trying to increase your business, which is good, right? We need to make a living. We just said, without making a living, Torah study is not the best way. But there's got to be a balance, right? So you can't be strictly working. And this one, we hear it all the time, right? In a place where there is no person, you should try to be that man, right? You should try to be the one to lead. And so there are a lot of situations where, maybe there is something that needs to be done and nobody's stepping forward, and Dave Love decides he's going to get the lulav and esrog for the community, right? Because nobody else did it. So, but at the same time, somebody else shouldn't come along and say, I don't like the job that Dave is doing, and I'm going to do a better job. Because when there is a person and he's doing a good job, it's not your place to try to push that out. So it works kind of in both directions. So when something needs to be done, step up and make sure it gets done. But at the same time, be careful. Don't examine your own motives. If there's somebody already doing something and it's working out well, then you kind of have to stay away. So and then he says, Imhu ra gogolis. So this next one, and kind of going along with what I said in the beginning, that the Pirkei Avos is open to interpretation, and every one of us has the right to interpret it any way we want. Obviously they're not recommending that we should go away from Torah mitzvahs, but a lot of the statements that they made can be understood in many different ways. And this is a famous incident that he was standing, Rabbi Gamliel was standing on the seashore, and he saw a skull floating in the water. So whether this actually happened or the story is apocryphal, it doesn't matter. He saw the skull floating. He said, he was standing on the bank of, he was standing at the lake in the back of our apartment here in Century Village, and he thought he saw an alligator. It wasn't an alligator, it was a skull that was floating there. So he looked at the skull and he said, Amar Allah, al da'ataft atfuch, because you drowned someone else, they drowned you. V'sof mitafin mitufin, and those people who drowned you, they're going to get drowned. So it's like, that everybody's going to get what's coming to them in the end. But the commentaries say it's not your job. If you see somebody that's having some sort of problem, it's not up to you to sit down and say, well, I know why that happened, because he didn't keep this mitzvah, or we'll go check his mezuzah, or whatever it is. So, yeah, people are going to, in the end, people are going to get what's coming to them. We believe in that. But at the same time, it's not up to us to judge and try to come up with a reason. Things happen for, God has his reasons, God has his calculations, and it's up to us to just accept what happens and not to try to be judging other people. Hu ha-yomer, further he used to say, marba basar, marba rima. Somebody who becomes obese, rather, basically, he will be increasing in disease, basically, and this could relate to while a person's alive or even while he's dead, because after he passes away, there's so much flesh to be consumed, so that it creates rot. Marba nechasa, marba daiga, and we all know it, right? The more you own, the more worries that you have, right? You're up north and you're thinking, is my apartment flooding here in Boca Raton? So the more you own, somehow or other, the more worries that you have. Marba nashim, marba kashafim, the more wives that you have, then you're increasing magic. And what does this really mean? Does it mean you have one wife after another, or more than one wife together? And when we're talking about magic, what does that mean? Does it mean that maybe the wives are trying to do tricks to attract the attention of the husband? Who knows? But just take it for what it is. Marba shivachos, marba zima. If you have a lot of maidservants, then you're going to have a lot of immorality. Marba avodim, marba gezel. The more men slaves you have, you're going to have more theft. Marba Torah, marba chayim. But the more Torah you have, the more life. And the Bar Tanura, in his commentary, says this is a progression. He said, how does a person live? If you're only seeking for physical pleasure, so what's going to happen? You're going to become overweight, right? That's going to happen to you. But at the same time, you're going to become overweight, and you're going to be striving to satisfy your physical desires. You're going to be making more money because you're working hard for that goal. So now you have more money, so you've got that to worry about. But at the same time, you can afford to support more than one woman. You know, I mean, people get divorced; they've got alimony to pay and everything else, and then if you happen to have a lot of wives, these wives, maybe they're going to want to have maids. And the more maids you have, well, you have to have slaves to satisfy the maids. And you're going to have the men servants, they're going to be more theft in your house. So all in all, the more of these things, they come like a negative progression, they call it a vicious circle. But marba yeshiva, marba chachma, but if you sit and you deliberate, you're going to increase wisdom. Marba eitza, marba tavuna, the more people you consult, the more advice that you seek, the more understanding that you will gain. Marba tzedakah, marba shalom, and the more charity that you give, right, the more peace that you will engender. And we all know that, right? If you are a person is charitable, so that creates a peaceful situation in the world. Kana shem tov, if somebody acquires a good name, kana la'atzmo, so he acquires a good name for himself. However, kana lo divrei Torah, but if what he acquires is the words of Torah, in that case, kana lo chai olam haba, and he will then acquire a life in the world to come. So the next one coming along is Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and it's the famous incident where the Yerushalayim was under siege, and even then they had the problem what to do with corpses, right? Like we have now. You see, unfortunately, you see pictures of bodies piling up in the morgues, and they have to bring refrigerated trucks and so on. So apparently they had that problem too, because Yerushalayim was under siege. People were starving to death, and they had to get the bodies out because were not burying people in Yerushalayim itself. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and his students they came up with a stratagem. What they did was they said, we'll pretend that the Rebbe has passed away, and we'll put him into a coffin, and we'll say we've got to take him out of the city in order to bury him. And that's what they did. They put him in this coffin, took him out of the city, and what happened was that they went through the Roman lines, and they came to the general, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai then came out of the coffin, and he spoke to the general. He said, listen, we're not trying to rebel. I just want to preserve what we've developed here. So allow me to go to the city of Yavne and reestablish the Jewish court there. And they did. And so he was the next in line from Hillel and Shammai. He used to say, "In lamada Torah harbe, if you have learned much Torah, al tachasik tova la'atzmecha." don't like my grandmother used to say, don't grade yourself. Don't think you're so wonderful because you've learned a lot. Because that's why you're here. That's your purpose in life. You're supposed to be learning. So don't think that because you learned that you're entitled to so much adulation. And he had 5 students, and I'm going to kind of end with that, just to say what the 5 were and what their main attributes were. Chamisha Talmidim Hayilo Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 main students, obviously had many more. The Elohein, Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanus, Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanus was 1, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, Rabbi Yossi HaKohen, Rabbi Shimon ben Nesanel, Rabbi Eliezer ben Aruch. These were the 5 main students. So he knew their best attributes, and he would say their praises. And how did he describe them? Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanus bore sots. Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanus is like a cistern which is sealed. In other words, whatever it takes in stays there, never goes out. So he had an encyclopedic knowledge. She'ena ma'abi tipa. He does not lose a single drop. Rabbi Yeshua ashrei yaladeto. And when it comes to Rabbi Yeshua, he said, praiseworthy is the one who gave birth to him. Rabbi Yossi chassid. Rabbi Yossi is a chassid, and he doesn't mean it in the sense that we think of chassidim today. It's somebody who was truly a pious person. Rabbi Shimon ben Nesanel. Rabbi Shimon ben Nesanel was Yirei Chet. He feared sin. Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch ma'ayin miskaber. So Rabbi Elazar ben Aruch was like a flowing spring. He had so much knowledge, and it came out from him. So if you can picture a balance scale, and on one side all the scholars of Israel, and Eliezer ben Harkanus b'kaf shniya, and Eliezer ben Harkanus was on the other one. So he was on one side, and all the other chachamim were on the other. In that case, machriya es kulam, he would outweigh them all. Abba Shaul said, Mishmo, also quoting Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Imiyu kol chachamei Yisrael b'kaf moznaim, if all the chachamim were on one side of the balance scale, right? If Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanus and Rabbi Eliezer ben Harkanus was along with them too, Rabbi Eliezer b'kaf shniya, and Rabbi Eliezer was on the other side, machriyas kulam. So Rabbi Eliezer would outweigh them all. So the commentaries ask the question: what is this? What's this mean? In one case, it's saying that Rabbi Eliezer outweighs everybody, and then the other one says it's Rabbi Eliezer that weighs everybody, including him. So they say basically, sometimes, depending on the situation, sometimes what you need is that person with the encyclopedic knowledge, and sometimes you need to have somebody who can quickly answer a question. So either one, in the right case, is the one that's going to outweigh all the others. And I'm sorry to say that we have to conclude now because they do need the Zoom. And I'm hoping that everybody enjoyed the class today and that you will come back. Cheryl, thank you. And that you'll come back again next week. And next week we will leave time for discussion. I know that was an issue last week. We had people who had questions and comments to make, and I enjoyed that part too. Thank you, Rebecca, and thanks. Thank you everybody for coming, and we look forward to seeing you again.
We had fun again.
Right, and by the way, Mishnah Yomas this afternoon at 5:45, and at 11 o'clock, Rabbi Stav from Israel. So you just log on to the Torah or website the same way you did it to find us, and you'll find Rabbi Stav. Thank you very much, and have a great day, everybody. Okay, we're going to ask her into the meeting.
You touched it, but it doesn't go off that way.